Hello, lover. You've just entered a portal of pleasure, power, and deep, unapologetic sensuality. This is Talk Tantra to Me, where we liberate your authentic self, reclaim the wisdom of the body, and let pleasure lead the way. I'm your guide, Leola, tantrika, pleasure priestess, best-selling author of Sacred Sex Ed, and devoted student of the erotic mysteries. I'm here to strip away shame and awaken your most radiant, sacred, and sensual self. Get in, babe. We're conspiring for your most pleasurable life and seducing the world into a greater good. So, take a deep breath with a vocal exhale, relax that delicious body of yours, and let's talk Tantra. I see you, sister, already so spiritual, deeply devoted to your path, but something in you knows there's more. You've meditated, manifested, maybe even danced under the full moon, but have you fully felt the power of your unapologetic pleasure and sensuality? Have you allowed your body to become your greatest teacher? Have you stepped into leadership in love? The Pleasure Priestess Initiation is your next step. A full year of deep sisterhood where we do life and love together. Online, in ritual, month after month, and in the flesh for a juicy in-person immersion. We'll explore powerful Tantra practices that you can take home and adapt, whether for your beloved, your sisters, or even for your own community. Plus, we'll have amazing guest sexperts, medicine women, and other powerful priestesses already walking the path, coming to share their expertise with you, as well as group masterminds, an electric WhatsApp chat, and high-level support as you step into your fullest expression. The initiation is open for enrollment now to start at the end of October, but as soon as you join, you get access to the vault of over 70 hours of previous Tantra trainings, resources, and the vault of our past guest teachers. This is more than a program. It's an initiation into your power, into your pleasure, into the woman you know you came here to be. Are you ready to awaken the pleasure priestess within? Click the link in the show notes to claim your seat in the temple, or visit us at www.talktantratome.com/pleasure. Hello, lovers. Welcome back if you have been a loyal listener, and also hello to all the new listeners. Either way, if this podcast means anything to you, if you enjoy it, I would really appreciate to see your reviews. Those reviews just help this podcast become a little bit more relevant in search results, which means that more people are able to benefit from the amazing stories and information and wisdom that you can find on Talk Tantra to Me from myself and many, many amazing and powerful guests. With that being said, let's get right into today's episode. So as the title suggests, today we're going to talk about Angergasms. Angergasm, what is an Angergasm, my experience with Angergasms, how you might be able to have an Angergasm, and then we're also going to take it a step further and just talk about what's generally pissing me off these days, as well as, other productive ways that we can move with this really intense energy of anger. I think that just a little background of my experience of anger. My experience of anger, growing up was that anger was bad. It was wrong. It was dangerous. It meant that I had done something wrong. It was chaotic. And I didn't feel that it was very productive. And today we're going to flip that script and show you how your anger can be really a beautiful expression of your aliveness, and also can be a vehicle into creating the world that you want to see. So with that being said, let's talk about first, maybe I'll start by sharing my first experience of having an Angergasm. So the first time I ever had an Angergasm was during a shamanic sexuality retreat training. And during that training, I was receiving a type of tantric body work called Sacred Spot. And there are a few episodes of the podcast about sacred spot and about yoni de-armoring. If you're interested in yoni de-armoring, maybe I can just pull up the episode quickly in case anyone wants to go find that, because it is a really powerful episode. Hold on, I'm just searching. Yeah, episode 119, yoni de-armoring and sacred spot. Maybe check that out if this is already, tickling your fancy. But in this training, we were doing yoni de-armoring and sacred spot. And this episode is not about that. So I'm going to share very briefly what that even means, and then we'll go into what happened. But basically, this is a type of shamanic or tantric body work that's meant to be kind of like a deep tissue massage for your emotional, spiritual, and sexual body. And what can happen in that is you end up at times, everyone's experience is different, but you can often have quite a bit of cathartic release and emotional release. And during this particular experience, a past memory came up in which I was actually, sexually assaulted by a male Tantra practitioner. That's a whole other story that I also share about on the podcast. But yeah, one of my very first experiences receiving tantric body work, my boundaries were crossed. I was penetrated without my consent. We're not going to go too deep into that story, but for the sake of sharing about the Angergasm, during the sacred spot experience, I was actually working through the trauma of that sexual assault. So if you're someone that has experienced sexual assault, it is something that lives in your tissues. The issues are in the tissues, right? And we can talk to our therapist about it. We can, journal all we want. But at the end of the day, we do need to have an embodied practice to support us in releasing the anger, sadness, frustration, victimhood, whatever we experienced or might be bottling up in regards to that sexual assault. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to go to like a week-long shamanic sexuality training or go work with a tantric body worker. You can move through this yourself. It can also be supportive to have someone guide you, such as myself. But neither here nor there. The very first time I had an Angergasm, I was moving through this sexual assault that I had experienced during a sacred spot session. And it shocked me. It really, really shocked me. It was beautiful. In this experience, there was a male that was doing the massage, the tantric body work on me. And I was able to fully lean back and receive, and it was in an immaculately held space. And I actually wasn't even receiving, I don't even think there wasn't any penetration that was happening for me at the time. I believe that there was just some very light external holding of my yoni. And the Angergasm actually came from this deep place of saying no. At this point in the ritual, the facilitator had invited, if we were ready, for the person that was actually we're all partnered up, right? So a bunch of us partnered up in a room. And so the one who was facilitating was invited to ask the one that was receiving, which was me, if we were ready to, receive penetration. And it was an interesting place for me because being, the dedicated student that I am and the type A person, I want to make the most out of this experience and be a yes to the penetration. And also for me at that time, my sacred spot, the place where I had this opportunity to release tension, was around actually just saying no. That was my sacred spot. It wasn't a physical spot in my body. It was this energetic no. And so I said it. I said no, and I said it out loud, and I screamed it, and I stopped what was happening, and this anger erupted in my body that was deeply pleasurable and erotic. It was this very cathartic release that was more than just the anger. There was this aliveness in it. There was this reclamation. There was this pleasure. And that's what an Angergasm is. An Angergasm is what happens when you stop minimizing, bottling up, or managing your anger and let it fuck you open. It's cathartic. It's ecstatic release. It's what happens when this repressed anger is alchemized through the body into liberation and power and potentially even pleasure. And it's not about anger or rage for the sake of getting angry. It's about giving yourself this ritualistic and sacred space, this permission for that anger to move fully and wildly and unapologetically. And it often, the energy, the way it flows kind of can mimic a climax or mimic an orgasm. And at that peak moment of release, there can be, clarity or transformation. But it's like, when this angergasm happens, it feels like that space right after a typical orgasm. And angergasms can incorporate sexual, pleasurable touch, or they might not. As I mentioned in this first experience of an angergasm, it was somewhere in the middle. Like, I wasn't actually receiving touch that I would consider, it was more clinical than it was like erotic. It definitely wasn't even really pleasurable. However, I'm sure many people would think like, oh, well, if your yoni is open and, a hand is holding it, well, then that's erotic, but it really wasn't. So anyways, I wanted to share that story to kind of show one transmission of an angergasm, but just last night, I had another angergasm, and I've had others since the first one, but I knew that I needed to record an episode of the podcast, and it's so funny because I was like, I don't know what I want to talk about. And I was kind of like putting it off. And in reality, I'm really happy that I didn't try to force an episode to come out, because I feel like this transmission that I'm going to give you today is so potent, so powerful, and it's so real and alive to what is happening for me in this moment. And yeah, again, I'm just happy that I trusted the timeline and waited. My assistant still has a few days to edit this, so it's not like last minute. Today was kind of like the last day. Like, if I didn't have something like really that I wanted to record by today, I have a list of like content ideas, and I would pull something from that and also make something really amazing for you guys. But I'm very, very, very pumped for this particular transmission because it's so present. It's so present in my being. So let's talk about my angergasm last night. Okay. So I've been having what I would call a tender girl summer. It's so funny because for the last few years, I've started out each summer saying, this is going to be the best summer ever. Like, cue early 2000s, like girl movie, chick flick, and it's the best summer ever, like coming of age tale. Yeah. And to be honest, like in many ways, each summer has been better than the last. Like I've had several really good summers in a row. Last summer had its challenges, but I launched my best-selling book. There was lots of other, beautiful things that happened last summer. And I also had some traumatic experiences happen last summer as well. But this summer has been mostly traumatic, I would say. There's been some like highlight moments, some really big, beautiful moments. And there's also been a lot of devastation and sadness. And it's just been a really weird year for me, a really challenging year. And I've shared some of that like in the last episode of the podcast. I shared about my miscarriage and some other like heartbreak that I'm moving through. And unfortunately, it hasn't really gotten better. In fact, some things have gotten worse, which I haven't shared about in depth on the podcast yet. And I probably will in due time. But for now, I'm going to share a little bit about it today and also just share some other things that are pissing me off. And I also just want to acknowledge that I also have so much to celebrate in my life. And I have like all the privilege. I have a ton of privilege that I was just born into by being a white woman in America. And I also have a lot of privilege that I worked really hard for as well. And I'm really grateful for the risks that I took to have the privilege that I have in other ways. And I've been celebrating some of the other milestones and other incredible things that have happened this summer, but it's been really overshadowed for me by some personal things that have, happened in my family and in my own life, and also just by like things that are happening in the world. And so this all kind of culminated. Like I've been doing the things, going to therapy, crying, feeling my feelings, taking space, all of that. But yesterday it really culminated into this place of like deep expression of anger. And so I'm already carrying all this stuff. But yesterday I got in the car. First of all, yesterday I woke up just like depressed. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. There's been a lot of days over the last couple of months where I just like I would say more days than not where I wake up and I'm like sad or depressed, and it's shit. Like, it sucks. Like, I'm not going to lie. I've had other seasons like this. But the beautiful thing is that I do have the luxury of having created a life where I have financial abundance and I have time freedom. So yesterday I woke up and I was like, I'm depressed. What can I do about it? Like, what can I do today to make today a good day? Like, what can I do today to make today a pleasurable day? How can I bring more pleasure into my day today? Was basically like my morning practice. And I like sat with it and I was like, you know what? I have a friend's birthday that's coming up. Maybe I could go to the boutiques in our little, like, we live like right outside of Austin, and there's like a cute little small town like 10 minutes from us. I was like, why don't I go there? There's some like cute little boutiques. I can, get my friend a gift, maybe pick up something for myself, maybe get like a little sweet treat at the coffee shop. So that's what I decided to do. So I get in my car, and currently my car is in the shop. My Porsche is getting fixed. Again, another like incredible privilege that I have. She's getting fixed, so they gave us a loaner Porsche to drive while the car is getting fixed. And so it's just like whenever I get in the car, it's automatically set to BBC News, which I'm not someone that really listens to the news. I find it really depressing, and I feel like I get enough of the news like from my husband sharing the things that he knows and from social media. So it's not something that I would ever just like tune into. But while I'm borrowing this Porsche, I'm like, all right, let's like see what's going on in the news. And like, for me, I'm also one of those people that I'm just like, if I'm not enjoying it, I will just drive in silence. I love to drive in silence, but I also don't really love figuring out how to work car things or like just technology in general. So I'm kind of just like surrendered to, okay, we're listening to BBC. Which again, if I'm not enjoying it, I can just turn down the dial all the way off. But I've just been listening to BBC while I go places, and I don't drive that much. So anyways, I tune in, and like the very first thing that I hear is about, they're talking about what's happening in Palestine, the drama with Hamas and Israel. And they're talking about this young man who, was at a music festival, was taken hostage, and is now in this underground tunnel being forced to dig his own grave, and is like starved to death. And, at the same time, we also know that Israel has this siege on Gaza and is cutting off food and water and resources. And it's just like, the devastation and like just this like deep sadness of what the fuck is going on in the world, and this anger as well. And so I'm in that energy and like processing that. And then I get to the shops, and I'm going through the shops, and it's nice and it's lifting my spirits, blah, blah, blah. But then another thing happens that pisses me off. And that was, so I'm walking around and I'm wearing one of my cute little outfits because that's who I am. And this group of young men, probably in their 30s, probably around my age, walks past me, and one of them like makes a comment about my appearance. It wasn't like derogatory, but it was like, he wasn't acknowledged. He was like, oh, okay. Like something like that. Like, just like, oh, and like, but he didn't really like acknowledge me as a human, didn't look me in the eye, like whatever. Like, it was in passing. So I just kept walking, and I was like, whatever, like, okay. So then I go into this little like restaurant and bar, and I sit down and I order some stuff, and then I'm sitting on my voice notes talking to some of my friends. And what do you know? Like 20 minutes later, the same group of men walk in, and the same guy, I think, maybe it was a different guy, I don't really know, but it's like 7 of them. And the guy goes, oh, there's that girl again. Obviously loud enough for me to hear. And again, doesn't look me in the eye, doesn't acknowledge me, doesn't say, oh, hey, it's good to see you again, or like really like treat me as a human. It's just like, oh, I'm just this like hot thing that you just like comment on in passing. It's not this, like, it felt very objectifying and like dehumanizing. And it's interesting, like there could be a whole other episode on this, but for me, as a woman, it's like there's two things that are happening inside me. One, there's the feeling of I'm pretty enough to be seen, and that feels good. And like I feel validated in a way because I'm beautiful enough to be commented on, if you will. But then there's this other side of me that's like, I feel objectified. I feel like I'm hot enough to be seen, but I'm not human enough to be acknowledged. And that really pissed me off as well. And yeah, so that's kind of the context of like what I'm getting into as I go into later in the day, anger expression, self-pleasure. So I went in to do a self-pleasure practice. I'm ovulating. This girl's a little horny. My husband's not in town. And so I was like, I'm going to do a self-pleasure ritual in the bath. And I'm going to think about all the things that I want to see in the world. Like I want to do my like sex magic for world peace, right? And so I go in, I'm doing the self-pleasure ritual. And you know what? It wasn't totally getting there for me. And I was just like, I'm just too angry to really feel pleasure right now. But being who I am, being a pleasure priestess, being an alchemist, I'm not going to let that be it. I'm going to let that be the invitation. Because for me, I know that what this all comes down to, the anger about what's happening in the Middle East, the anger about immature men making comments about my body, the anger about what's happening in my personal life, the anger that's happening in regards to like the personal lives of my clients and like how their partners are treated, like everything that like is coming up for me that's anger all goes back to God. All of my anger at the end of the day is anger at this God. Like, how can this be the reality that we're living in, right? And I know that I feel closest to God, goddess, my highest self, the divine, when I am at the brink of orgasm. So I'm going to go straight to the fucking source and bring my anger to the altar and see what God's got to say about it. So, and this wasn't like I'm consciously like deciding all of this in the moment. It just kind of flowed from like, I'm trying to like get pleasure and think about the things that turn me on so that then when I'm in the height of desire, I can think about the things that I desire to experience for myself and for the world and anchor them in, but it's not working. The things that turn me on aren't turning me on. So I switch gears and I immediately start like feeling my anger, just embracing the anger full on, going there. I'm like growling and screaming and clenching my fists in the bathtub as the water is pouring on me and touching my clit. And I'm just like pissed off and letting it fucking rage. My poor dogs are in the room and they're like, no one else is home. And my dogs are probably like, are you okay? I think they actually came and like jumped up on the side of the, the bathtub. Precious little babies they are. So yeah, I let myself fully feel it and be in the anger and surrender to it. And guess what? Your girl had another angergasm. What? Your girl had another angergasm, which was deeply like exactly what I needed. Like it brought me to tears. I immediately had clarity and downloads coming through from source, from my higher self, even like things that I've always known that were just like reminders, just deeply hitting me in my heart and saying, okay, yeah, this is the way forward. This is it. So let's talk a little bit more about anger. Let's talk a little bit more about like what we can do with the anger that we have in our lives for whatever reason we might be angry. All right, babe, let's talk about your pleasure power. You know you're meant to experience more ecstasy, more ease, more turn on in your body and in life. But where's your hidden block? What's keeping you from fully owning or receiving even more pleasure in this delicious life? I've created a free pleasure power quiz to help you uncover your unique pleasure archetype and pinpoint exactly where your growth edge is. Also, when you take the quiz, you'll get access to a juicy Tantra ritual, also free and tailored to your unique pleasure archetype. Also, don't miss the Sexual Shadow Work Workbook, your guide to clearing shame, activating your turn on, and stepping into your most radiant and embodied self. Also free. Find them both at www.talktantratome.com/free or get the link in the show notes. Life is about to get very juicy. I want to rewrite the story around anger. Again, I feel that a lot of people, and myself included, have and still do feel this judgment of anger and feel that it's unproductive. And I do agree that there is a shadow of anger. There is a way that it can be really create more danger and terror and fear in the world. And when we alchemize anger, when we allow ourselves to fully feel the anger and transmute that pain into purpose, we can use the anger as a vehicle for change. And there's also this like aliveness in anger that happens. Like, how fucking alive do you feel when you're pissed off? Like the adrenaline's pumping, the blood is moving through, and it's like, actually, while the tone is anger, the energy is actually very similar to like some of the most exciting moments of our lives. Like, you think about what happens physiologically in the body when you're really excited as well as when you're really pissed off. It's like actually quite similar. So there is a tone of like the pleasure that comes with actually letting yourself express and feel the anger. But on top of that, there's an aliveness that's like with depression, there's this tone of like, I don't matter. This doesn't matter. I've given up. Whereas with anger, you're like, I actually give a shit. Sacred anger helps you say like, no, enough. This stops with me. We're fucking doing things differently now. And there's something really hot about that too, right? And so when I let myself go into that place and feel all of that, I got to get curious about like, okay, why is this happening? And what can I actually do about it? About what's happening in the world, what's happening for women, what's happening for children, what's happening in the Middle East, what's happening all over the world, right? And so one thing that really came through, like when after the anger was like kind of at the end of being released, there was this undertone of sadness and also curiosity and compassion. And I had this I already knew this, but I had just this like moment of recognition that the world is run by a bunch of scared boys trying to find power. There are a bunch of men and women in the shadow of their masculine. And stay with me because I'm not bashing men. I'm not bashing the masculine holistically. We'll get to that a little bit more later. But the reality is that a world that's run by fearful men is a world that fears the feminine, that fears the earth, that fears the body, that fears what is sacred and powerful. A world run by fearful men is fearful of God. They're little boys trying to play God. And so I want to talk about what objectification is about. So this understanding of objectification, is relevant to both what I experienced yesterday, which was a level of objectification, and I've experienced much, much worse. The objectification that I experienced yesterday was actually pretty light, very light, one would say. I've, experienced sexual assault. I've experienced very aggressive objectification in the United States and also all over the world when I've traveled alone as a single woman. And then I also want to say that what I am talking about, like that I personally experienced yesterday that was objectification, wasn't just about me. It was also thinking about all of the men and women that have ever experienced objectification, all of my past experiences of objectification, and also my ancestral objectification. Like, I know that not only have I experienced sexual assault more than once in my lifetime, there have also been plenty in my ancestral line as well. So there's lots to get angry about there. And then I also want to be mindful, though, that I'm not comparing the fact is that being objectified made me angry. And I'm also angry about what's happening in the Middle East and in other parts of the world, in Ukraine, etc. And I'm not trying to pretend that my suffering or the things that are angering me here in the US are at all comparable to what people are experiencing in literal war zones, okay? But I want to just share the frequency of objectification and how it's showing up literally all over the world, and how it moves, like how this energy really moves. So energetically, when someone is objectifying another person or a collective group, it's because they perceive that the person that they are objectifying or the group is very, very powerful. So when we see something, when the person that's objectifying sees this other as very powerful, that feels unsafe. They take it almost as like a threat of your power is taking away from my power. So what do these objectifiers do about the lack of safety that they feel? They try to create safety by minimizing that person, by making them out to be an object that they can conquer and potentially manipulate as well. So if you're a woman who has experienced objectification, I would take it as a sign that your natural feminine essence has felt like a threat to the people around you. And that's not your fault. And that's not a reason to tone it down if that's your authentic expression of yourself. You could start taking it as a compliment, and you could start calling them out. Because I did have a moment, I'm in my bath, where I was like, I kind of wish I would have followed those men and said something about it. Like, hey, it would be great to be seen as a person, you know? Anyways, and I'm not saying that you have to do that. I think that there are days where we have the capacity for that, but it's also not our responsibility to teach the men of the world not to objectify and how to interact with the sacred feminine in an appropriate and divine way, right? So unfortunately, there are lots of scared boys out there parading as men. And it's the same thing, like what's going on in these war zones, like, you know, treating people as like human shields, treating people as like political stunts that you can just like use and cast off. Like, it's pretty insane that like literally starving people to death on both sides is like literally you're treating someone like as an object for you to get what you want and to get your power back. And this isn't political. Like, I'm not trying to make this, like, I'm just trying to teach about the essence of objectification and like how systemic this is in our world and in our relationship between the masculine and the feminine, and like not just the masculine and the feminine overall, but like the feminine way of being and the feminine way of doing things, and just like honoring each other as like sacred lives, as our brothers and our sisters. So what can we do about it? What can we do about it, Leola? Okay, I have some thoughts. I am not this is not the be all and end all. These are my thoughts from a tantric lens, from my lived experience, which is rich and diverse, but also limited, because I have not lived the lives of every single person that's ever lived. But here's what I've got for you. I've got a few things. So one, the first thing, which you might be expecting this, alchemize your anger. The first thing to do is alchemize your anger. Because if you don't, it will come out sideways and affect the people you love. It will harden your heart. You'll start taking it out on your kids or your pets or your husband or the poor lady in front of you at the grocery store, okay? So alchemize your anger. Find a productive, healthy way to move through that. May I recommend a pleasure practice? And let's talk a little bit about how you might create an angergasm for yourself. How you might stimulate yourself to have an angergasm. I want to also say that like emotions and pleasure move like water. So you kind of have to let go and go with the flow and not try to like create an experience or attach yourself to a particular outcome. So say you really want to have an angergasm, create the circumstances that could potentially lead to that experience, but you want to be not too like grabby with it. Like, so the analogy I like to use is like when you're working with emotions and pleasure, the more it's like water coming out of a faucet. The more you try to grab on to the feeling or emotion like water, it just doesn't work like that. Like you can't just grab onto an orgasm and make it happen. You've got to relax, release, let the water, let the energy flow and feel it. And maybe it'll happen. Or maybe you'll just be able to enjoy the waves of expression that naturally and organically come. And the same is true of an angergasm. You can't grab on and make it happen, but you can create the circumstances where it's possible, okay? So you could do something like I did last night, where you go in for a pleasure practice, you start touching your body, get things flowing, and then you start thinking about the things that really piss you off, and you allow yourself to get off on the aliveness. You allow yourself to continue to touch your pussy, touch your cock while you connect to the energy of anger and just see what happens. It probably is going to be a little awkward at first. It's probably going to feel a little performative. It might feel like just weird, like it's like a muscle, especially if you don't really allow yourself to experience anger in any setting. It can feel like very new, but give it a try. See what happens. You're going to miss all the shots you don't take, so you might as well shoot your shot with the anger and see. So that's one way to go about it, is just to literally like start self-pleasuring and think about the things that piss you off. Allow yourself to scream, to cry, to get angry. But you can also experience this just like any type of energetic orgasm. I would say anger is like a type of energetic orgasm. And energetic orgasms, can be experienced without any genital or physical touch, but they can also be experienced with it. And the same is true of an angergasm. So I've had angergasms happen when I did a rage ritual, where I was literally just hitting pillows and like really letting myself fucking go there, instead of toning it down or trying to be pretty in my expression of my emotions. It could be from, really allowing yourself to dance out the anger. There are many different ways that an angergasm could happen, but there's some options for you to try. So again, alchemize your anger. If you don't, it's going to lead you away from your inner oracle. You've got to alchemize it. You've got to feel it to heal it. That is step one. Step two, or another option, another thing that you could do. They're not really steps. These are just things that you can do about your anger. Another thing, I do recommend though, alchemizing it first, like really feeling it before you do the other things, but you do you, girl. So the second thing, reclaim your feminine. Reclaim your feminine. Like in these moments where you feel so powerless to what's happening in the world, maybe to what's happening in your own life, connect to the things that you can change. Put yourself in the rooms where you can make impact. Put yourself in rooms where decisions are made. Do it for yourself. Do it for the women that can't. Do it for your ancestors who couldn't. And do it for the world that you live in today. Because again, we've got a lot of scared boys in these rooms where decisions are being made, whether it be in our Oval Office or it be in the CEO boardroom, like all over the place, in the home. Make yourself known, make your presence known, make your voice heard wherever you can. Maybe create some new opportunities for yourself to step into those rooms where decisions are being made, because we need more women making decisions and exercising their feminine power than ever before. And that's not to say that I think that women should be the leaders of our society exclusively, because I don't. I think that we should have both masculine and feminine leaders. And we just have a lot more scared boys than we have empowered men and empowered women. So I'd like to see that change, okay? Our abandonment of the feminine is so pervasive and like all over our material world. Like just think about like just these like very bare statistics. It is no coincidence that 1 in 3 women report direct experience with violence or assault, according to the World Health Organization. It's no coincidence that our waters and the lands of Mother Earth are in the shape that they're in today due to mass pollution and toxins. It's no coincidence that up to 1/3 of mothers report birth trauma because we've been collectively ignoring women and the feminine and missing out on her gifts of oracular wisdom. And we've been failing to protect women. And, masculine forms of intelligence and decision-making call for us to look outside of ourselves for the answers, to government, to science, to authority, to the media, whatever. But the feminine wisdom asks us to feel and to go inward and to connect with our bodies for the answers. And so when we're able to really balance those masculine and feminine pieces, we become limitless. But it's in my opinion that most people are more embodied in their masculine knowledge than in their feminine wisdom. Okay, so the truth is that as a society, we've just been putting a lot of emphasis on the masculine way of running things, and having the courage to listen to your body and your experiences rather than relying solely on external influence is a divine rebellion. Okay. This often involves, saying the uncomfortable thing when it's easier to stay quiet. It can involve advocating for yourself, your pleasure, your needs, advocating for others that can't speak for themselves. It can look like questioning every societal conditioning and expectation that you've ever inherited or received. And I'm not going to lie, it takes a lot of courage to explore these parts of our femininity and these parts of our authentic selves for all genders. But I will say that in my opinion, women have been largely conditioned for generations to be agreeable. And I think it's also in our DNA to create safety for ourselves and in the family unit to advocate for, ease. And oftentimes that can have a shadow of people pleasing, right? So, I just want to honor that piece and really invite you to think about what does it look like to take on a new wave of feminism where we're not becoming women in men's clothing, nor are we staying in our sphere of, the kitchen and the home, but we're allowing ourselves to not ask for seats at the table, nor focus on what we're bringing to the table, but know that we are the table. We are the altar. We are the ones that we've been waiting for to worship and to save us. Like, we are the ones that we've been waiting for. This generation of women, we are the ones that we have been waiting for. So lift yourself up, lift your fellow women up. Now is the time, okay? So I'll also just say that this really relates to a lot of my work around reclaiming the dark feminine. And I have other, pieces of content about the dark feminine. I'll have some more bits about the dark feminine coming up. But the dark feminine, in essence, is the parts of the feminine that have generally been demonized, misunderstood, and largely abandoned over the past few thousand years. And that's mainly her oracular, intuitive talents, her emotional alchemy, and her sensuality, and their shadow of each of those qualities. But there's also a whole and divine expression of those qualities. And this reclamation of the dark feminine is where so much of your power is as a woman. And again, this isn't an abandonment of the light feminine, nor is it about slamming the masculine. And it's also not about trolling, canceling, siphoning, reputation ruining. Like, those are all shadows. And your shadow is what happens when, you're using your hurt to hurt other people rather than like directing that energy into something productive. It's like directing your energy and anger at the wrong person. Those are all shadow forms of the dark feminine, okay? I also want to add that, like, as you are exploring your anger and alchemizing it and learning to channel your dark feminine energy, like, there are so many places where your power is needed, like where your dark feminine can be channeled, where that pain that you make into purpose can be like exercised. And I'm here as permission and evidence to teach the essence and the energetics of what that is, but it's up to you to decide where you actually want to channel that energy as an individual. It's not my role, nor is it my agenda to tell you how to use that energy. You get to channel that energy to where it is important to you. I just want to say, like, trust your desire. Trust where you feel your heartstrings pulled, and champion those causes, because we need people to speak their truth and advocate for what's going on in the Middle East and in the politics in the US and in sex trafficking and in reforming our school system and in reforming our farming and agriculture system. But we can't all do it all, okay? All of these causes are so important, and we can't all do it all. So trust what is really speaking to you in your heart. Okay? And don't make people bad or wrong for not championing the same desire, the same cause that you're championing. I see this happen. Like, this happened during COVID. This happens during BLM. This happens with what's happening in the Middle East. It happens with in Ukraine. Like, if you're not making like all these big donations and speaking so badly about and choosing a side, it's like, oh, well, then you're a bad person. No, like, we all are going to have our causes that we're able to dedicate ourselves to. And that doesn't mean we don't care about the other people that are being victimized, that are being starved, that are being prejudiced against. Okay. And like, you know, it's also good to acknowledge that too, if you have the capacity. Okay. For me, like, I have like 2 or 3 core causes that I dedicate my life to, that I very regularly, even when they're not getting publicity, that I very regularly champion and make donations to. That includes sex trafficking. That includes empowering women in communities that are underserved. Those are like probably the main 2 that I really like spend time with, you know, oftentimes as well, like empowering young women and girls. Sometimes there's different like things that pop up, whatever. And then I also care about what's happening in the Middle East. And I also care about BLM, and as it applies, I'll speak up about those things and make donations, etc. But what I'm saying is, like, it's your, like, the more that you reclaim and channel your dark feminine, your anger in the ways that feel authentic and empowering to you, the more you're going to like inspire and awaken others to reclaim their own power and channel it into their unique dharma. Okay? So when you are maturing your dark feminine, when you are maturing your emotional alchemy and beginning to make the mess of feelings inside of you a message and begin to take up more space and maybe even create a platform, you may notice yourself getting pulled in lots of different directions and feeling obligated or pressured to use this energy in a particular way. And this is the time, again, to double down on your dark feminine, to trust your knowing, to trust your intuition, to trust your heart, to trust that internal compass, okay? Because it's very easy to switch into like a light feminine shadow of people pleasing and trying to do it all. So just be careful, be self-aware, and speak to what really matters to you, and be compassionate to all. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so we've talked about alchemizing your anger. We've talked about reclaiming your feminine. Those are the first 2 things. Let's talk about acknowledging the men that are doing this work. Holla to the men that are listening. Hello. Thank you for being here. I have a little love letter for you here in a moment. And this love letter is also meant to inspire the women of the world to interact with the men in our world in a compassionate and loving way. Because yes, there are a lot of scared boys running the show, but there are also a lot of mature, powerful, integrated, honorable men who are doing the work to show up. Oh, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. To show up and protect you and provide for you. Okay? There's so many of them. I'm very fortunate. I literally have chills right now. You can kind of see them if you're on the video. Ugh. Anyways, I am very fortunate that I get to work with these men in my line of work. There were many years doing tantric body work where men were my primary clients, and they brought me their pain, their sadness, their frustration. They laid it down. They were vulnerable. They cried in my arms. They alchemized it, and then they went back out into the world with their fucking heart on their sleeve. Okay? So if you are struggling to find that in the men around you, come into one of my containers, girlfriend. I got you. I'm going to show you the new man, the new earth intimacy man. Okay. So A love letter to men. The world has asked much of men. It has placed heavy burdens on the shoulders of men. We have placed the burdens of their ancestors, of men that did atrocious things, and made it the men of this generation's fault, while also offering little space to rest and breathe and reconnect to their true essence. Men are just as much victims of this system, okay? Society often criticizes masculinity, leaving men to feel blamed and misunderstood and unworthy. But the truth is, men are vital and powerful and deeply needed. This isn't a debate about which gender is better or which gender has been hurt more or which gender has hurt whom. It's about a deeper truth that men have been victims of the same system that has left so many of us disconnected from our divine love and our authentic selves. The immature masculine energy in our culture isn't yours alone, isn't the men of today to carry or bear. It's a collective wound, one that we can only heal together. And men don't need to apologize for being men. Masculinity is not the problem. It's actually a profound gift. It's what the world aches for. We don't need less masculinity, but we need more mature, grounded masculine energy. Men who embody their light, their dark, and their shadow with courage and integrity. We need men who love fiercely and lead wisely, okay? And there are so many that are already showing up. And I see you, and I want to invite the female listeners here as well to also acknowledge and offer gratitude and love and support, okay? They're not going to do it perfectly all the time, just like you're not going to do it perfectly all the time. Let's all have grace for each other, but really just see the work that the men are doing to grow and to heal and evolve. And as priestesses, as women tuning in, I want you to think about the reality, the story, the beautiful expression of what it means to be a priestess. Because in ancient times, when warriors returned from battle, they didn't go home to their families first. They went first to you. They went to the temple to meet the goddess in human form, to receive him. And there's evidence of this in Babylonia and Sumer and ancient Greece. There were sacred women waiting at the gates of the temple when these men came back from war, not just to tend to the physical wounds of the body, but also to tend to the wounds in the soul. Can you imagine what happens to the heart and the soul when you have seen the atrocities of war? No, you probably don't as a woman. And you also probably don't even have that in your genetic code and in your DNA because it was your male ancestors. So the women would bathe these men, massage them, de-armor, sacred spot these men, and hold the rage, the grief, the guilt that would come up. And she made him human again. And guess what? These men didn't come home with PTSD. That's a whole other cause that you could dedicate yourself to in this lifetime. The freaking men of our country that have massively sacrificed their mental health and their physical health to create safety for us at home. And so in ancient times, these men were, by the priestesses, ritually rewoven into life, into society. And today, not all men go to war, in the same way that men did in, ancient times, although many do. But they're still in battle, at work, in their minds, within the system of patriarchy. They're fighting to provide, to protect, to survive. And these men need priestesses too. And we've learned to fear the warrior in the masculine. We very often demanded our men to be safer, to be softer, to be more feminine. I've done it. Oh my God, have I done it, babe? I will own it all day. I have tried to make a woman out of my man. Guilty. But guess what? I know better now. Because this was all for me coming out of fear. Fear of his shadow, fear of the men in their false warrior, the scared little boys in charge that hurt me in the past. It's the false warrior, right? And the false warrior is the masculine that's cut off from his heart, from his purpose, from his soul, from the sacred. When, the energy of the warrior is uninitiated, when it's unheld by the feminine, when it hasn't had time to mature into connecting to the energy of devotion, when that warrior is led by ego, his strength is hijacked, and it can be really dangerous. This is what we're seeing is happening, in all of the wars that are happening in the world today. And throughout history, false warriors have propped themselves up behind these glorified missions. Oh, I'm freeing the chosen people. Oh, whatever the story is. And it's inevitably created more terror in the world. Great examples, the Crusades. The Crusades were about spreading Christianity, guys. They murdered so many innocent people and raped so many women and pillaged so many villages. The conquistadors in America, another great example. We're exploring the new world. Really? That's not all you're doing. I bet you're also exploring all of the fucking crops and gold and other resources that you can steal from the land. Bet you're also doing that. Nazis, disintegrous CEOs, gang leaders, all of these, all great examples of the false warrior. Okay? And yet, the world is actually starving for more warriors, more mature men who protect instead of dominating and objectifying and, using people as pawns. We need men who have faced their darkness, who can wield their sword without being cut off from a divine purpose from their heart. They need your support as a priestess to alchemize that pain into purpose. So that's what I'm saying. We also need more priestesses. We need more women in their full power who can stand in his intensity, in his fire, in his pain, and help him channel that, who can call him into his heart and seduce him into a greater good. It's going to benefit you, and it's also going to benefit the world, babe. So just saying. So this world that's been built by scared, disconnected men, we are offering an opportunity for that to crumble. And many of us can feel it. We can feel it in our hearts. We can feel it in our wombs. We can feel it in our angergasm. We can feel it in our rage. And we can feel this ache to do something that actually matters. Not saying that we can fix it all, but to allow ourselves to be a different kind of force inside of this world, right? As pleasure priestesses, we don't bypass the pain of the world, we alchemize it. And I dream of a more turned on, love-filled world. I've seen it. I've created it. Every time we end one of our retreats or the Pleasure Priestess in-person initiation, I'm in tears. I'm like, this is the evidence. This is what the world can look like when people from different backgrounds come together with their hearts open, when women step into their power, their pleasure, and their purpose. You become evidence of what's possible. You bring it back to your communities, and that ripples out like a freaking domino effect, right? And so, that's something that I'm really passionate about in this season of life is really teaching women how to reclaim their sacred leadership, because we were never meant to stay small and numb and nice and palatable. We were meant to be portals. We were meant to be pleasure priestesses. And this isn't about escaping the chaos. It's not about becoming the chaos. Maybe for a minute, become the chaos. But it's about becoming the type of woman who can hold it and feel it and lead anyways. A woman whose power is turned all the way the fuck on, whose heart is online, whose voice might shake, but she still speaks in the rooms that she knows she can make impact in. And so if you're feeling that call, if this episode spoke to you, you're a woman that's tuning in, and you felt this in your bones and your blood, I ask you to join us. I ask you to become a channel for a world that's becoming a world that is truly turned on and love-filled. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap it up here. I invite you to join us in Pleasure Priestess. We are currently enrolling for the fall cohort. It's shaping up to be an incredible, incredible group of women that are already inside, are best-selling authors. They are midwives. They are leading and creating Tantra communities in their hometowns all over the country and even all over the world. There are women that are in politics. There are women that are birth keepers, that are mamas, that are, supporting their families and their children to become more loving creatures. Okay. So would love to see you inside this space. Again, the Pleasure Priestess is a year-long initiation for women. It is online and in person. It is a beautiful, beautiful place, and all of the information for how to become a part of this community are in the show notes. We are going to be leading a revolution in love. This is a mystery school to initiate you into the sacred art of orgasmic leadership, to reclaim your dark feminine gifts, heal the sisterhood wound, and seduce the world into a greater good. Can I get a hallelujah, 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 baby? All right. With much love, have a sacred and sexy day, and I'll catch you next time on Talk Tantra to Me. Ta-ta. Over the years, I've been approached by many pleasure-based companies to promote their products, but I've only ever said yes to one person because I genuinely love these products so much, as well as the woman behind them. Wands, spelled Waands, is a crystal pleasure toy company, and they have been a part of my Tantra journey since the beginning. And they're not just toys, they're truly activators and beautiful sacred pieces of art that foster deep self-connection, pleasure, and transformation. These 100% pure crystal wands and yoni eggs help you unlock your body's wisdom, clear energy blockages, and amplify your pleasure, whether alone or with a partner. And it's not just about the products. For me, it's about the heart and the soul behind them. And the owner, Courtney, I absolutely adore her. She's been so generous to offer you, my beloved listeners, an exclusive 15% off with the code Leola, Leola. So if you're ready to honor your sacred sexuality and awaken your sensual energy, stepping into a pleasure-filled life, head to wands.com. Again, WAANDS, 2 A's, and use code Leola for 15% off. And you can always find the link directly in the show notes. Trust me, you're going to thank me later.